So this is going to actually be episode number 6 for As One Voice, talking with Senior Airman Dawson, who was in the Air Force. And this is a little bit about her story. So I want to welcome you, and I want to thank you for stepping forward, because it's not easy to come out and tell your story, especially when there's so many people that want to try to come up and bash you just because they feel they can, because they're behind a keyboard. I have no tolerance for those kind of people. So Miss Dawson, please tell us about your story. What year did you go into the Air Force, and what you went in as far as what your job was going to be?
I went into the United States Air Force March of 2014. I actually went into the United States Air Force Open General because I felt like it was a calling from God to serve my nation, and I had a full ride to school, so I actually put school on hold to join the United States Air Force, and I came in as a medic for an aerospace medical technician for the Air Force.
That's incredible. I wish more people today would have that sense of longing to serve their country. Unfortunately, that's not the society we're living in today. Tell me what happened while you were in.
I went through boot camp in San Antonio, Texas for 2 months. Passed my PT test, all my physical, all my mental health. I also passed through MEPS. No mental illnesses were found or anything like that. Nothing's recorded in my past about it. And everything went fine for the first year. I got stationed at Scott Air Force Base in Illinois, November of, I want to say 2015 timeframe.
Yep.
And then everything was good for that first year. I actually received awards for Volunteer of the Quarter. I got coined by that commander for stepping up and doing a job that wasn't necessarily required of me. Everything was great. I didn't get in any trouble until a new command came in, and that's when things started hitting the fan. I actually sought out mental health after I lost 6 family members. My cousin committed suicide, and I actually lost my grandfather, who was my role model, and that was devastating to me because I couldn't have those last moments since I was serving my country.
Which people need to understand as well, that PTSD is not just somebody shot at you. It's post-traumatic stress disorder. So it's a traumatic event. And just because somebody wasn't shot at doesn't mean they get belittled just because they have PTSD. It's too many people are ashamed to say that they have PTSD because they're afraid to get ridiculed, whereas it's a very real thing. And it's even tougher for somebody that's away from their family, trying to do good things, and they have no control over what's going to happen. I mean, you just don't know when people are going to pass away. So it can be very traumatic. So you found out your cousin committed suicide, and then you had your grandparents that had died, which were very close to you.
My grandfather actually raised me and took me in because I didn't have the greatest upbringing as a child with my family.
Right. And so you weren't able to be there when they passed away.
No.
And that affects you.
Yeah, I did. Because I regretted joining the United States Air Force after that, because like I said, I could have had that last few moments to be with them, but instead I couldn't go home. They wouldn't allow me to go home.
So did you try to get some leave? You weren't in for too long at that point in time, so you probably had minimal leave accrued, but usually they'll give you an emergency leave.
Yeah, but it's not the same because the person's already sick, You still have that regret because you wanted those good memories before they got sick. That's what was difficult. Is I did get to go home for his funeral, but he got sick when I was in training.
Oh, right.
And I also lost another grandfather to a 4-wheeler accident, and I wasn't able to go home for his funeral. So, there were some cases, I did get to go home for the funeral, but I didn't get to spend the last moments with them, and they don't remember who you are when they become that ill.
Right. Yeah, that makes it even tougher, especially when you had a close bond with them.
Uh-huh.
So you felt that it impacted you, so you were trying to seek help?
Yeah, I was afraid to seek mental help at first because I was told by other service, just the horror stories of hearing from other service members how mental health, you just don't go to mental health because it will ruin your career and it doesn't do you any good. But I still thought I could trust the Air Force and that wouldn't happen. It's my family. Why would they do that? And if I'm voluntarily seeking out mental health, why should I be affected? Because I'm trying to help myself from preventing it from affecting, my career in the Air Force.
Right.
And I was told that it wouldn't affect my career, and since I was, I voluntarily sought out that. I was command directed to.
Right. So you went to a military hospital?
I actually worked in a military hospital, which kind of was part of the issue though too, because it was kind of a conflict of interest since I worked there,
Well, it shouldn't be a conflict because you didn't work in that area, right? You would work.
I did not, but the command and my mental health provider would talk to each other about what I told mental health. She would relay it to my commander.
Which that in itself is unethical, since it's supposed to be patient security and privacy, part of the Privacy Act. And unless you're a harm to yourself. So if they deem that you're going to hurt them or yourself, then they would have to report it. But if not, then they shouldn't have opened their mouth at all.
And actually, there was encrypted emails sent back and forth between my command and mental health about what was going on, and then I was not involved or aware of those messages or meetings until I got my medical records, and it was stated within my medical records. So I didn't even know that it was going on while I was in.
So in your medical record, it stated that they were conversing back and forth?
Without me present, correct.
But there was no, were you able to get your hands on any of those?
No.
You might be able to use the Freedom of Information Act and get those retrieved.
Maybe. I'm still working on it, so it's been difficult.
Especially if you have an active court case presently, that would definitely be something that would show an unethical movement on behalf of the doctors when they should have handled it a lot more professional.
And I also had one of the nurse practitioners say some pretty crude comments to me about when I served, basically saying that I'm owned by the military and I have no rights as a patient since I'm government property and they can do with me what they want.
You know, I had some really bad experiences when I was going through the medical issues from the injuries that I sustained, and that was years ago, and I was really kind of hoping that things have changed in the medical field by now, but apparently it hasn't. There's still people that feel like they have the need to bully others because of their position.
I could actually tell you some stories because I worked in the medical field of how they would deny people benefits and some of the stories about what was going on behind closed doors.
That's horrific. I'll tell you what, if it wasn't for a certain corpsman that I had in the Navy, I would have never known that a nurse practitioner had told the people up front, because I was there for an appointment. And apparently this guy, he was a nurse practitioner for the surgeon that I was going to see, was cursing up and down, saying, who the hell does this guy think he is? I don't care if he's special forces or not. Nobody has the right to come in here and demand to be seen. And he just on and on. So while I was waiting to hear what I needed to do next, the corpsman came up and said, you know, I want to give you the same respect that I would hope you would give me in this situation. And then she told me everything that was said. I said, nope, I think I got two options. My first option is to go back there and let him know exactly how I feel with few words, or I can walk out that other door and head to my vehicle and drive away and save my career or what's left of it. I said, I'm going to go drive away. And I did, because I really wanted to not. I wanted to confront that weasel that wanted to talk behind my back. So I can understand that things do happen and people's abuse of their position for sure.
I actually called out the nurse practitioner that made those statements, and she would tell me AFIs that weren't true on how I couldn't see another provider outside the military since I was government property. And so I requested for a religious accommodation to see a Christian counselor outside of the military, and I was denied. And they said that I actually went to the chaplain and got that letter written up, and they said that they never received it. And I was told when I requested not to see that counselor anymore that I had to see her. I didn't have a choice of who I could and could not see. And then they made it command directives that I had to see her after I called her out on some regulations and AFIs that she disregarded and didn't follow.
Unreal.
She was a major, so she basically outranked me is what I was told.
That means nothing. I got myself, because I was enlisted as well, I got myself in a couple pickles, but I had a pretty good leadership above me at my team that took care of us pretty well at the time, because I've said some things to some doctors that they didn't take too kindly to, because I was enlisted and they were a major and full bird, and they didn't appreciate an E6 telling them that they could go do certain things with themselves, because I wasn't, the sad thing is that there are so many people that screw the system, because they're looking to screw the system. So when you approach with a legitimate issue, then you get treated like you're trying to screw the system.
And I think what people don't understand is, you have the difference between your enlisted and your commissioned, but people look at commissioned officers as if they're gods.
Right.
But what they don't understand is a lot of enlisted actually have more education than half those commissioned officers, but they chose not to go commissioned because the enlisted is the backbone of the military. Well, I'm not trying to say that commissioned officers are pencil pushers, but, they rely on their team behind them.
Yeah.
And
no, they are.
That's where the enlisted comes from, but they don't get treated with any respect, and the commissioned officers take the credit of their enlisted team members.
Right. Well, it's just like any organization. If you've got a manager, the manager's not down there turning screws and operating machines. He's managing the people and the work being done. The people that are doing the work are the ones that make the manager look good.
Yeah, that's true.
So you decided to to seek a mental health appointment.
Yes.
And they started conversing back and forth with your leadership, which was part of that hospital.
Yes.
And where did they take it from there?
My anxiety had gotten so, like, the whole medical time, like, during that time I was seeking counseling. I first went and was told by one of the counselors that it wouldn't affect my career and that they would reevaluate where I was in a year. And then just from there it kind of progressed. Things at first seemed like they were okay, and then they ended up putting me on a medication. Actually, I asked to be put on an anxiety medication, and they put me on Zoloft. Well, little did they know, like, they knew, I guess they knew side effects of Zoloft. They're nurse practitioners. Of course they're going to know the side effects. But the Zoloft had, like, side effects of, like, I could not sleep, I was losing weight drastically, my moods started changing, suicidal ideation started occurring when I didn't want them to occur.
Sure.
And so I told them, like, this is what was going on, but they saw it as if though I was, like, almost a basket case. And my nerves were so shot because I didn't know who I could and could not trust more. They requested me take off that medication, and they didn't listen to me. They didn't switch it to a different medication or even take into consideration. So they tested me. My command requested to mental health that I be tested for a personality disorder. And a personality disorder in the United States military is actually a loophole to get service members out as quickly as possible without any repercussions on the command. And it denies thousands of dollars in benefits to the service member. When I found out they were doing that, that's when I started documenting everything and requesting to see, I wanted a second opinion.
Awesome.
And I wanted to go, because I still had health insurance through my mom because I was under the age of 26.
Right.
And so I requested leave to go home so I could get tested, and they refused me that second opinion. They told me if I received that second opinion that I would be punished for it, and they denied me from leaving the state of Illinois. I couldn't, and getting a second opinion, they said if I got a second opinion that I would reap the repercussions of it. So they denied me from ever getting the second opinion.
So let's put it into perspective here, because I'm pretty sure there are going to be people that hear this that turn around and say, well, that's crap. I would have done it anyway. When you're in the service and you're fresh in the service, like you only have a couple years invested and you're trying to do everything the way it's supposed to be done, you're following the rules, you're doing it by the book, and you're trying not to make waves, because that's what they do to us. They make you conform, so that way when you're told something, you just obey, you don't question it. So for those that think that you were too submissive because you didn't do this, or you didn't say, screw this, I'm going to go pursue another avenue, they put the fear into you that they have the power and you don't, and that they can screw you to the wall quick and easy. So that's for anybody that thinks that they would do things different if they were in the military, because I've heard that before. Oh, if somebody yells at me, I'd punch him in the throat. No, you wouldn't. No, you wouldn't. Oh, no, you wouldn't. And that's a fact. You're going to try to obey and follow the rules. Otherwise, you're going to get in trouble and they're going to make you pay for it. So they told you couldn't leave Illinois. So what did you do at that point?
I actually, when I knew what they were trying to do, I questioned it. I was like, why are they testing me for personality disorder? Because I've been seeing them for a year. They've never diagnosed me with the personality disorder. And now all of a sudden, like, they didn't even do the proper testing. And I was already diagnosed with the personality disorder. Like, there was no testing done or anything done, but they requested to send me to Ohio to get tested for personality disorder. But like I said, my command requested that I get tested for a personality disorder. I mean, if I hadn't been diagnosed, why would my command question it for me to get specifically diagnosed, tested for this disorder? But what I did is I searched the internet because I was like, I do not have a personality disorder. This makes no sense. And that's when I came across multiple organizations and these statistics that thousands of other service members from 2001 to 2010, 31,000 service members were separated for a personality disorder. The majority of them were separated due to retaliation for reporting sexual assault cases, that they were the victim of sexual assault, but yet they were the ones who were diagnosed with the personality disorder and separated from the service. I actually came across the TED Talk, Joshua Coors, because I Googled it on YouTube. I know, silly, but
it's
I Googled
not silly.
it, and I almost felt like a beacon of hope. I was like, okay, if other service members, obviously I don't have a personality disorder because I would have been diagnosed, way by now. And when I saw those statistics, that's when I knew exactly what the military was trying to do. That they were trying to get rid of me for calling them out on some stuff that they were doing that was illegal and fraudulent, which I can get to those stories here in a little bit. But so I found the TED Talk of Joshua Coors speaking, and I actually reached out to Joshua Coors on a Facebook message hoping maybe he would reply back. He was an investigative reporter for The Nation when he uncovered the conspiracy of military discharges. And he actually set me up with an organization called Disposable Warriors, which is down in, I believe, Kaleen, Texas, and it's ran by an enlisted Army sergeant by the name of Chuck Luther. And, I just learned more and more. And then I also came across another organization called the IG Rights Hotline. And they were able to, which is an organization based out in California, that are able to assist active duty, reserves, guard, any discharge, anyone who served in the United States with any type of legal issue, medical issue. They kind of just appoint you into the right direction. And they ended up connecting me with an organization called CMRS, Civilian Medical Readiness Network. And there I was able to meet Dr. Wakin. And he actually did a whole screening on me. And he found that there was no personality disorder. I had severe anxiety and depression from what was going on because I was still active duty trying to seek to get it, to halt. So I actually did receive my second opinion.
So he did
for free.
He did a full evaluation workup on you.
Yes.
Awesome.
And he actually has the credentials to diagnose anybody with a personality disorder because he's been doing it, working with people with personality disorders for over 30-something years. And he started that organization out of his own funds to help out service members who are being thrown around by the medical system for mental health. And I actually help volunteer with them today.
That's awesome. Yeah, I can tell you that personality testing that the military does, because they tried doing that to me. And that's kind of one of the times that I almost got in trouble with this lieutenant commander, because he read the results, because I had memory issues, and my doc sent me in, put in a consult to have my memory tested. Well, the test was a 2-hour computer test of just silly questions. Come to find out, it's a personality check. So when I got my evaluation read to me, the assessment that was read to me, and said, well, according to the testing, the results show this, 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 and this, and totally untrue assessments. So one of them was, you commonly get depressed. Anybody that's ever met me knows that that's never, ever an issue. I just don't have a depressive personality. Regardless of what's going on, I don't get sad. I mean, I'll feel sorrowful if I lose a pet, if I lose a family member, but I don't dwell on it. I don't get depressed. But he's sitting there going, well, according to our testing, you chronic depression, and just reading all this garbage. And I said, look, here's what's going to happen. You're going to remove those untrue statements in there, because this was supposed to be from my memory and not a personality test. So I don't know where the disconnect happened. And they ended up doing that to me like 3 times, doing that stupid test. And I think it was for the same reason that they were coming at you, was to try to find that loophole to be able to discharge me.
And with that test, one of the questions was, because I don't want to use a religious person, because I have a relationship with Christ. I don't believe in religion. I mean, I'm not someone who, if anyone else has a different, viewpoint of life, like, to me, that was something that was important. That was one of my core values, was my relationship with Christ.
Sure.
And it would ask me questions like, well, do you believe that someone's following you or looking over you? Of course I do, because I believe in God. So
right.
How am I supposed to answer that? I asked them, how am I supposed to answer these questions? And they just told you the best of your ability. So now I'm seeing as paranoid because I believe that someone's looking at me or whatever, you know what I mean?
Right.
Because, or I believe in, guardian angels, so I'm paranoid, which it doesn't make sense.
Just to give people an example of some of the questions, because I still remember some of these questions such as, if I was a painter, I'd paint flowers. I have seen dead people. I talk to the devil. If I were to kill somebody, I would kill a puppy. And these are the questions that are given. I like the color red. I like the color orange. I do not like my mother. I do not like my father. I love my brother. And you don't...
But they set you up because it's like an A, B, C, D question. So like if it asks
right.
you who would you kill, well, what are you supposed to put if you have a multiple choice question? A dog, C, a cat, D, a person, or yourself. It's setting you up.
Right. And they tell you have to choose one. And there are no wrong answers. But that's not true, though, because what it does is it compiles they're going to pick and choose the information that they pull out of it. Oh, well, she chose that if she was going to hurt somebody, she would hurt herself.
Well, I'm not going to hurt other people,
Right. Or a dog or a cat.
I would hurt myself before I'd hurt other people, because I'm not someone who
goes around going to purposely hurt somebody. Yeah, no, I'm with you.
I wouldn't hurt myself either.
Right. But out of all the evils, that would be the lesser of all evil. But
like going back to what we were talking about earlier, like I said, I went to mental health to prevent it to getting that far.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I had full access to guns and ammunition because at a special warfare team, after I'd gotten injured the second time, I was trying to rehab so I could go back out, do the job. So they put me in charge of the armory. So I had full access to guns and ammo. And everybody there at my team knew that I was broken and that I was in a lot of pain. So I wanted to set their mind at ease. And I went to my doc and said, hey, can you put me in for a psych eval? I just want to make sure that everybody knows that I'm not going to shoot the place up because I'm in pain. I want to set their minds at ease. And my doc was awesome. He sent me sitting down talking to the guy. He was pretty awesome. You know, he asked me questions like, okay, so if I come into the armory and I start screaming at you, you know, what are you going to do? I'm not going to do anything. We all have bad days. I don't care if you're screaming and yelling at me. He goes, yeah, but what if I touch you? What if I poke you in the chest? I'm like, well, that'll be a big mistake right there because I do have access to guns and ammo. Now you're a security threat. And what that means is as soon as you touch me, I'm going to put you to the ground and I'm going to explain to you on the way to the ground why that was a bad decision to put your hands on me. Oh, so you wouldn't shoot me or stab me? I'm like, no, I wouldn't have to. I would just wrap you up and we'll have the authorities come take you away. And at the end, you know, he cleared me hot. No, you're not going to kill anybody. You're not going to shoot anybody up. And, you know, you're free and clear. I'm like, awesome. You know, I volunteered for this. So I was like you were saying, you were trying to do the right thing. So to pursue a solution that's going to help you and it gets turned around against you.
Well, the funny thing is every service member, you know, we go through the DET program, the entry program to get into the service. You have to take a psych eval. Every single service member is given a psych eval. Okay, well, something would have shown up and then they should have, you know, but I served a numerous amount of years before this ever even came up. There was no issues until I sought out mental health.
Right.
You know, I've never been diagnosed with a personality disorder in my entire life, and all of a sudden, you know, it was never found on my psych eval, and I've taken multiple of these evals throughout the entire year that I served, well, that year that I got mental health, but it wasn't until I started calling out that nurse practitioner for, you know, saying bullcrap stuff, saying I don't have a right as a military member, which is stupid because, you know, we aren't prisoners. We choose to serve our country, so people have the right. So why should our rights be taken away based off of our religion, you know, and who we can see as a provider? I mean, if you don't like somebody, why should if I disagree with the provider, why shouldn't I have the right to see a Christian provider based off of my Christian beliefs?
Right, exactly.
Why should I be denied that?
Which that should actually be an option, especially if you're trying to pursue a second opinion or other opinions.
And going back to what we were talking about with the questions that, you know, when you get tested for a psych evaluation, they ask you a whole bunch of questions. And they also do a personal questionnaire or whatever. And one of the questions that they asked me is, do you believe you're special and unique? I said, yes, but I think everybody is special and unique because they're created by God. In my medical records, they took out the whole last part about God, and they said she thinks she's special and unique. And so then they diagnosed me with narcissism. The comment I had just told you, that I think everybody is special and unique because they're created by God, how does that sound narcissistic? They didn't even pull that whole last part into my medical record.
Right.
They put with the bits and pieces that they wanted to diagnose me with that personality disorder.
That way it fits their narrative.
Yes.
And it allows them to maintain a picture of who you are on paper. So that way it'll support them when they say, well, we're just trying to get rid of a troubled airman and she's causing all this hate and discontent, you know.
I was trying to do what was right because there was multiple things in our command that were happening. There were other girls being done wrong based off of their gender. There was a girl that was sexually assaulted in a previous command. She reported it. She had evidence, was demoted from her rank, from sergeant down a few ranks, and then she was shipped off to a different base. Well, when she got to that base, you know, she was reaping the repercussions of, you know, the mental issues that she was facing, and then she was dishonorably kicked out of the service for being sexually assaulted.
See that?
And she can't receive any benefits, and to this day, she still doesn't know what to do, and I'm still in contact with her here and there.
See, that's the same situation as Christina, who was the first female I had on my podcast.
Yes.
Same exact situation. She gets drugged and raped, and then she tries to tell somebody about it, and then she's retaliated against. And
yes, by her command.
Yeah, absolutely, and gets hammered.
And by Joni Ernst, which is funny because I've actually been in contact with Christina.
Awesome.
The command that, you know, she talks about Joni Ernst. Joni Ernst is actually my Iowa State Senator. When I reached out to, because I like I said, I did everything that I was legally allowed to do. You're allowed to reach out to your congressperson. You're allowed to go to IG and the ADC, which the ADC is the Area Defense Council, which I was done all three. Originally, I was denied to go to the IG because I was doing it on Air Force time and I'm not allowed to do it. Well, what other time am I allowed to do it? Because after work, they're not open.
Right.
And then they restricted me to the basement of the building, and when I was not allowed to go anywhere else throughout the hospital because I was trying to talk to patient advocates, different, leaderships, begging for help, telling them about the statistics I had found, about service members being discharged for personality disorders. I even specifically have emails that I sent directly to the patient advocacy telling them. They did nothing about it. And then when I said I reached out to Joni Ernst, she never once directly spoke to me or anything. I begged her for help thinking, she's a female service member, she'll know what to do. She's an Iowan, I'm an Iowan, she's going to have my back, hopefully. She actually sided with the findings of the United States Air Force, and she didn't do a proper investigation because the people that they appointed over to do the investigation were actually people that worked at Scott Air Force Base. So I had a reservist in the medical field doing the investigation who worked directly with my commander. So it was biased. There was no unbiased,
Sure. Yeah, that clearly shows checking the blocks and not actually trying to pursue the truth.
Correct. And I've called her out in town hall meetings, and she still refuses to do anything. And the funny thing about it is with, Christine opening back up her case and me becoming more vocal about my case, I will believe any sexual assault survivor. And I want to believe Joni Ernst about her case, but it's almost too coincidental that two females that have begged her for help, that she's covered up both of their cases, now all of a sudden she's coming forward with saying that she was assaulted. Well, she's a commander, and she's a state senator. You would think if she really was assaulted, she had the power to make a difference for two female service members in particular to overturn their cases and help them out.
Yeah, I think you'd be hard pressed to find any female representative that is elected and working in DC who would not jump at the opportunity to hold other people accountable for being sexually assaulted.
Like I said, I want to believe her because I believe every other survivor. I want to believe her, but it's very difficult for me to believe her after what she personally has done to me and what she has personally done to a soldier.
Yep.
I can't. It's difficult to.
Yep. No, I agree. I absolutely agree.
I feel like she's trying to get the, public on her side. So when those two stories are out there, all eyes are on her rather than those two service members trying to speak out and trying to make a difference for other female veterans.
And there's a lot of the politicians use pro-veteran statements on their campaign to get reelected because people are patriotic, but they're not patriotic like they used to be patriotic. In other words, more people would get involved years ago than they do today. Today, they would much rather just donate to an organization that says they help veterans and elect the person that talked more about supporting the veterans than actually doing the research to see what they do to support veterans.
Which is funny because there's a lot of organizations out there that actually the money that's donated to them, they don't even use to help service members. And I'm not going to sit there and bash on, some of these organizations because that's not what I'm here to talk about. But it is, people do need to do the research.
Oh, absolutely. That's why I have a blog that I update, and that's one of the things that I constantly touch on is research. Just go to charitynavigator.com and punch in the charity and see what they're doling out, because some of the bigger names are
Yeah, and basically the money goes towards paying the staff. It doesn't even help service members.
Well, I have a hard time swallowing that an organization needs to pay their executives six figures when it's a non-profit organization. Yep. Plus, there's numerous other horror stories that go along with that. So the thought that a politician, just because they talk a good game about supporting veterans, doesn't necessarily mean that they actually support the service members and the veterans. But when I was living in Virginia, I tried to work with Senator Warner. I kept providing proof about, VA tactics and abuse and everything they've done to me. And Senator Warner pandered to the VA and never used my proof that I've supplied. Instead, he turned over my proof to the VA, which made the VA up their game. So tried to get the governor. Nope. He's like, you need to talk to your VSOs. Tried to get the congressman. And I told the congressman, look, if your standard operated procedure is to send my letter showing you the proof of what they're doing to the VA, then I don't want your help. Just let me know and I'll move on to someone else that might be able to help me, but do not send the VA the proof that I'm sending you. So what did they do? They sent the proof to the VA. So every politician except for one who was a female congresswoman who actually had guts, who actually tried to hold the VA accountable, that was in the very beginning. She didn't get reelected, and that's when the abuse started. So there are some good ones out there. Yes. Unfortunately, there's a lot of them that talk the game but don't actually support the service member.
And the ones that do do, like you said, don't get reelected, it's because they don't have other congressmen on their back,
right,
on their side. But what you're talking about, congressman, there's another congressman in the state of Iowa named Chuck Grassley. And the funny thing is, going back to talking about how Joshua Coors uncovered the conspiracy of personality disorder discharges, it actually got a hype for a while. It went on Dateline and all this, and people were speaking about it. And Chuck Grassley actually signed a bill to halt personality discharges in the military when Barack Obama was a state senator in Illinois. And I actually reached out to Chuck Grassley, and he didn't help me with my case at all. And the funny thing is, when Barack Obama was president, and he put out a bill, he didn't do anything about it when he was during his presidency.
Right. Yeah, I'm doing a lot of digging into those bills, not Obama, when Obama was in, because I honestly, I don't care who's in office, I don't care who's elected in any position, as long as they are trying to, in a positive way, propel the U.S. and take care of its people. That's all I really care about. And
I actually don't have a political view. I'm just independent. I'm not Republican or Democrat. I just want to put that out there because I know some people try to say, well, she's going left, she's going right. But that's not the case. I just want the best for people in general.
Right. Yeah, and that's a good way to be, because then you're choosing the person you feel will do the best benefit.
Yes.
But one of the bills that was supposed to be oversight on the VA, because who do we look for as far as veterans go? We look at the Congressional Committee on Veterans Affairs to provide oversight to make sure the VA is doing the right thing. Well, when I'm tracking certain bills and you start looking at the time frames, and then you start looking at, hey, did it even get passed? And come to find out that they put so many amendments into it that nobody's going to vote for it. And they do that deliberately. So that way the representative can say, well, I tried to push this bill as far as possible and get it made into law, but nobody else wanted to support it. But they don't tell the full story. So I make the representative prove that they're worthy of trust, because I'm just because of their position, there's no way I'm giving them my trust until I can do the research and think otherwise. So they had the opportunity to do something for your case and to halt the discharges for mental health reasons until proper evaluations were done, and it went nowhere.
They wouldn't allow me to get it done properly. The Air Force nothing was done by protocol at all. And on top of that, some of the retaliation, I was in mental health, there was some illegal, like I said, when I tried, my friend, a coworker of mine was assaulted. I actually spoke to the IG officer about it when I was talking to him about my case, and he said he was very aware of what was going on and that they were doing the best to take care of it. And then for most people that know, medical staffing, so every hospital goes through what's called the Joint Commission, JCO, every few years to get inspected to make sure everything's up to date. You want to make sure your record's up to date, the medication, the staffing, and all that, right? So when JCO came through doing their annual inspection, the Air Force at Scott Air Force Base at the 375th Medical Group, they had records that had not been filed in over 7 years. Those records have to go down to St. Louis, which Scott Air Force Base is only 20 minutes from St. Louis. So there's no reason that they shouldn't have been done within those 7 years. But they locked them behind a closet and was having airmen of lower enlisted try to sort through them as fast as they could. But some of those medical records of those service members that had stepped forward at Scott Air Force Base within those 7 years, some of the reasons that they may not have their medical records because it was not done properly and they were missing. And so they just wrote it off.
Unbelievable.
But I have no proof of it. But I was one of those airmen that were trying to get to do that. But I was trying to do it properly, and I was getting in trouble because I wasn't doing it to the speed of their liking.
Right.
But it was never done in 7 years. But they put it on the lower enlisted.
That's sickening, because that means there's a whole that means there's a whole bunch of Air Force folks who,
not just Air Force, other service branch and their family, their dependents.
Yeah, see, that's ridiculous.
And I don't know how many records were missing, because all electronic records did not become electronic until 2004. But these are your physical profiles that are missing. They were boxed up, but they were never sent down to St. Louis. So some of these service members may never have been able to get their medical records because they were never retired to where they needed to go or sent to where they needed to go, St. Louis. And there was no excuse because, like I said, St. Louis was only 20-something minutes away from our base.
That's sickening.
And the commanders above us, like I said, I was going from commander to commander, and they were hiding it from other service members.
See, and I don't see a benefit to that. What propels somebody to do that other than now they're too invested in the problem that they don't want to get caught and have their careers jeopardized, even though they know that it's wrong.
Yeah, so it's easier to ruin the lower enlisted. Example A, me.
So they ended up wanting to force you out using mental health as a
reason.
Discharge reason, without actually trying to give you the benefit of the doubt and have you go through another evaluation to get a independent evaluator to give their assessment.
Correct, because I wanted evaluator that was not in the United States military, that was outside of the United States military, so I could get a decision that wasn't biased.
Right, which I want to reiterate also that you joined the service because you felt that was your calling and you gave up a free ride in college to do so.
Correct.
Which not many people would do, that's for sure. So where do you stand now? Like what are your attempts?
I've I had a lot of negative ill feelings. Like, it was hard for me to see someone in uniform for the longest time because my family that was the military did me wrong. But then after a while, I started hearing other service members and their stories, some of the veterans, and I'm like, it's not every service member. It's a lot of the discrepancies come from up in the command. And I believe my goal, if it doesn't happen in my lifetime, is to try to get the dynamics of how command is ran over the enlisted. Because if a commander does not like you, it's easy for them to get rid of you. Well, you may not like somebody based off their personality.
Right.
How is that fair, though? Because they could be, top A and do their job just fine, but they don't like you. Right now, I'm just currently living my life and trying to do self-care because it's difficult for me to sleep. I think about it every single day. For the past few years, it's almost, I was discharged about 2 years ago, and I've come a long way, but it's still difficult at times. But I work with the CMRN and help other service members that may be dealing with stuff. I try to become an advocate to speak up about some of the wrongdoings, to try to be that face, because some service members don't want to come forward because they're afraid of that retaliation, the repercussions that may come back on them.
Absolutely.
So I try to speak up as much as I can on social media. I've hired a lawyer with my case, and right now, hopefully the VCMR, we can get up towards the VCMR to review my records, because like I said, I was honorably discharged, so I get my GI Bill, but there's other benefits that I cannot get because of that personality disorder. It's considered a pre-diagnosis prior to joining the service, which makes no sense because when we joined, we're evaluated prior, so it never showed up then. But there's some service members that have dishonorable for being sexually, like a friend of mine, she lives in a different country and she was deported actually for being sexually assaulted and reporting it because she chose not to go to mental health and because of the stigma of it, and she chose to self-medicate because of the PTSD. She couldn't bear with it, and it actually ended up sending her back because she wasn't a citizen of the United States, and she could never come back to the United States even though she risked up to her life and she was in a deployed setting and witnessed war.
Yeah,
and the funny thing is she's rated at 100% disability, so the government sends her money to the country that she lives in now.
That's a shame.
But she's deported, and her daughter lives here in the United States, and she can never see her daughter.
So you actually have a active case going on with your lawyers right now.
Correct.
And if you had your way, you would be still serving.
Correct.
See, that's honorable, even though the
After
experience. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, think about it. So the whole purpose of you seeking help is because you're trying to process the deaths in your family. And then you go through all of this, which means you don't have any time to try to find a solid solution to, get closure about all those deaths, because now you're having to defend yourself in every turn because of what they're doing to you.
Correct.
It's tough. Good on you for being an advocate, too, for trying to reach out to others, because the military does really well at putting the fear into the service member that you can't speak out, you can't speak up, you can't sue them, you can't go to the media because you'll be retaliated against. So they put the fear into every service member to try to get them to not speak out against things.
As a whistleblower, yes.
Right. And that's why I started this podcast was, good or bad VA stories, service member stories, whistleblower stories, because right now the veteran community is a million voices all talking at the same time, and you can't make sense of it. And I'm trying to get it organized to where, that's why I called the podcast As One Voice. So we're organized, because once you're organized, then they have to listen to you, and you can start getting changes done for the positive, and then you can start holding people accountable. I've been trying to get in front of the Congressional Committee on Veterans Affairs for years now, and they ignore my requests, constantly ignore them, because then they have to go on record, because I'd have them held accountable. Hey, I'm providing you proof. Now, what are you going to do about it? They're awful quick to make decisions that's going to benefit them, but they're not as quick to benefit the service member that's been done wrong.
Yes.
So I don't know.
I have have to, like I'm saying, the people that did me wrong, like, they were not following AFI's DOD guidelines, so they should have been the ones held accountable. But now I'm sitting here outside the service trying to fight the justice system and was separated within weeks. Well, it's going to take me years to hold them accountable.
Yep.
And I'm an innocent bystander in all this. I was trying to do the right thing. And on top of that, there was another illegal and fraudulent thing that they were doing that I spoke up against, which was, so when you do procedures, you know how they use, like, scalpels and stuff for surgeries.
Yep.
Well, we had a civilian that did those things, and she ended up leaving. And so they had to replace it because, I mean, we can't shut down an entire organization because one person's gone. So instead, they're pulling people that aren't even qualified to sterilize medical instruments. And guess who happened to be one of those people that they told to do? That. It was me. They told me I had to sterilize medical instruments. Well, I don't have the training to do that, and they didn't give me the training to do that. So if it's done wrong, and they go and use those medical instruments on service members, families, or their dependents,
yep, they're gonna die.
They could die.
Yep.
Because they're not sterile, and they're not processed sterilely. And how would that be my fault? Because I'm doing what I'm told to do, but then at the same time I'm speaking out against it.
Right.
Because I don't want to, end up hurting somebody.
I don't know if you've connected with Lisa.
I don't know who that is.
Okay, Lisa is Lisa Black, Miss Lisa Black. She was my episode 4 podcast, who was a VA whistleblower, and her job was to ensure that the tools got sterilized and so on and so forth. And she blew the whistle when they decided to run a little test and have, basically what it came down to was she blew the whistle because there was tools that were being utilized that weren't sterilized properly, and she got retaliated against. Basically, she got forced out of her position, and to this day, she's still being retaliated against. This is probably one of the nicest women I've ever met. And, it's awful brave of her to be able to step forward and talk about it for definite. However, she's the one paying for it. You know what I mean?
For speaking out against it, which, like
Absolutely.
I said, that was going on during the time I was seeking mental health at the same time. They were having me do that, and on top of the record.
Look, the VA got busted when, I don't remember why, but they raided a storage facility, and there was thousands of veterans' records there. They found, I don't remember what location it was at. I believe it was somewhere down south, but they found that a bunch of records got shredded, and they had the lower level people doing it because they were told, you need to go and shred these. They're not going to question why. And then they got caught shredding records because they were told.
Exactly what they were doing with us too.
See, imagine, I know with full records, because I was making copies of everything. I was recording appointments. I was making sure my bases were covered, but it took me getting screwed to figure it out.
Same here. It wasn't until the last few months I was in when I found out my command was requesting for me to get diagnosed with personality disorder discharge, when I started purposely recording every little thing. I got lucky to find that they put those in my medical records while I was still. If I would have requested my medical records after I got out, they probably would have taken those out, saying that they were having those encrypted emails sent back and forth in those meetings without me present. I was lucky enough to have that guidance from Chuck Luther and Joshua Forrest to get my medical records as soon as I could, and I requested them as soon as I was still in. But the funny thing is, after being out and them testing me for a personality disorder, the one medical record that they will not give me, and my lawyer has requested it, is the personality disorder test, so I could have it read by another doctor.
Sure.
Or psychiatrist, but they will not give me.
See, that right there, them deliberately putting up roadblocks for you further exposes them for a retaliatory action against you. Exposing them.
If they were to read it probably would not come back with personality disorder.
Right, and then they would have to justify why they were so quick to discharge you for a personality disorder.
And for personality disorders, so it's through a book called the MMP2, I believe, the Minnesota, I can't know exactly what it's called, but that book has not been updated since the 70s.
Typical antiquated operations.
So it's not even up to date for personality disorders.
Right, which that doesn't make very much sense, especially since the traumatic brain injury and PTSD has been the two biggest topics in the past handful of years, where, now granted, there are some veterans that are quick to say they have PTSD because they know it's a high percentage that they wouldn't normally get. Same way with traumatic brain injury, but it actually has to be in your record to justify, or location or event, so on and so forth. But by them not doing their due diligence, they're just forcing you out that much quicker.
Well, that's the thing with I was talking about the research I did. Most of the service members, or a lot of them, were diagnosed with that were sexually assaulted, I mean, that's a PTSD. That's a traumatic stress, I mean,
Yep.
but a lot of them had PTSD, or they did have traumatic brain injuries, but they purposely misdiagnosed them with the personality disorder so they did not have to spend money on them the rest of their life. Because I think I read that they spent about $1.6 million on one service member in their lifetime. The DoD does. So it's easier to discharge, that's their budget cut, is purposely misdiagnosing them so they don't have to pay them throughout the rest of their lives. Because they know it'll take years for them to fight. And then by the time that they win their case, I mean, 10, 20 years have already gone by.
Yep.
So that's 10, 20 years that they don't have to pay you.
And the VA makes it a point to put certain roadblocks to make sure you don't get retro pay from when you got out. One of the big things, and I try to inform as many people as I can about it, the day you get out, the VA does their budget annually. Now, their current budget was $221 billion for the year. $221 billion, and that's including the extra $11 billion that President Trump just handed over to them to do their job better. They get the numbers of how many people are supposed to be discharged, and they incorporate that as if they were running, or as if they were going to claim disabilities. So that way they're prepared to make their assessment and pay the veteran. Well, if the veteran does not, the service member does not put in a claim, the VA still got paid that percentage of money. So every year that the veteran doesn't put in a claim, the VA gets to pocket that money in order for the VA to keep asking for more and more annual money. So in other words, you remember how it is in the military, you either use it or you lose it. So if you requested for, say, 2001, you requested a budget of $100,000. Well, before October 1st of 2001, if you did not spend that $100,000, you're not going to be able to request the $100,000 again or more. So if you can show that you spent that $100,000, that when you're asking for $120,000 now, you can justify it saying, well, it's because we have to do this, and it'll justify it. But you have to use up that money in any way possible. It was like Christmas every year at the end of the fiscal year to spend that money. So the VA does that, and they're bleeding money. So every veteran, every service member that gets out has been allotted a percentage, and that's what the VA takes. So it's a big mess. It's even worse when you don't have, representatives holding them accountable like they should.
I think the representatives are even scared of retaliation too,
Well, they do get donations, and the VA has a lot of money. I'm just saying, if you follow the money, you start seeing certain patterns. If you watch the Congressional Committee on Veterans Affairs on YouTube, you'll start seeing how the VA is blatantly lying about something, but the representatives don't hold them to that. They don't hold them accountable.
It's disgusting how the VA treats, like I was stating earlier, someone's risking up to their lives so other people can have their freedoms, but yet they're restricted, and their rights are taken away.
Yep.
But in their health even. I mean, they're risking, a service member may not die, by blood fire and all that, but we still, as veterans, like I said, I wasn't able to be there we still sacrificed daily. I wasn't able to be there for my family when they were passing away.
Right.
And some people, it's the same with other people. I mean, even though they never deployed, they still are sacrificing every day because they're doing their job and they can't go home, or they're missing holidays with their family and friends.
Sure. So what's the next step with you? What's the next step with your case?
I'm still, like I said, waiting to hear back from the BCMR with my lawyer, hoping that the BCMR will review my records, but I hope they will. But from what I've read in my studies, more likely they probably won't, because once again, that's through a military entity, and then from there we'll just keep going up until my voice is heard.
Right.
I don't really know where my case sits. Just as of right now, I just know that I'm going to better myself, do self-care. My life isn't over. I will spend up to my life, I still took that oath of protect and serve, foreign and domestic. And I will still have my brothers and sisters back. Even though I'm no longer active duty, I'm still always going to be an airman. And I will continue to be a voice for those that don't have a voice.
And that's important because they're going to need to hear that there is life after military for sure,
I actually am going to hopefully become a nurse, and I want to be a nurse, but I want to be a mental health nurse.
Right. Nice.
So I can actually give back and help them.
Right. Well, that's commendable for sure. They need more people that actually care in those positions. It's a shame that the leadership gets away with abusing their position and forcing you out that much quicker, especially when you said you had two other two other females got discharged in the same manner, and one of them was proven sexual assault and got transferred to that base and then gets retaliated against. It's not supposed to follow you, you know? If you're going to get put to another location, another base because of sexual assault, then that story shouldn't follow you. Like, they should not have to question, why are you here now? You know, you changed duty station. That's all they need to know about it. And they ended up discharging them. It makes me sick.
And I think another thing that frustrates me is like some people that like to hide behind a computer screen, they'll say, well, females don't belong in service. Then they'll say, well, this is a prime example. But I mean, males get assaulted too, but they're more likely less to speak up against it because, you know, of their masculinity. And the funny thing is most men that are sexually assaulted are assaulted by other men. So it's not just females that are sexually assaulted.
Sure, and it doesn't go to say that people don't make up stories. My first command, there was a female that got caught. She ruined a guy's career, actually. She said that he raped her, and he didn't. And it got proven later, but he was already discharged. He got a bad conduct discharge, and he ended up having his rank taken away. And she ended up admitting that she lied because she was mad because he wouldn't, you know, have a relationship with her when I think she was still married too, as a matter of fact. So it was a big mess. But what it does is it ruins it for females that have a legitimate complaint, you know?
Yes.
Because especially if one person at the command says something and anyone else that comes up and says it, they're going to be looked at as lying as well. And that sucks. I mean, it should be a case-by-case basis for sure, but taking the appropriate channels to make sure that, one, they get the medical support that they're supposed to have, and two, they get the evaluations in order to properly... It's the same way with anything in the medical field. You have to do your research, you have to do your question and answers, you have to do your lab work, and then put all that information together to come up with an educated decision on how to treat. Otherwise, all you're doing is putting a Band-Aid on something and pushing it to somebody else.
And I don't think the military should handle all of their cases by themselves, to be honest with you. I think there needs to be an outside party that comes in. Otherwise, the military is going to hide it, you know, because they don't want to look bad to the public. They still want the public's trust because they need to meet a quota of how many people they can get to enlist in the service.
Yep, I agree. And not only that, but it looks poor on the commander, and the commander wants to make sure they make the next highest rank because, you know, they're career folks up there.
The other thing I want to point out from my research, and my command found out I was doing this, and this is another reason I was retaliated against. An enlisted member can actually charge a commissioned officer for wrongdoings under the UCMJ Article 31. And they found out that I was doing that I was filing wrongdoings against my commander. So it was another way to get me out quicker because it's bad. It's really bad for the commander.
Right.
But that's a very hidden, like a lot of enlisted. I'm only throwing it out there for someone who might be going through something that might be enlisted. That is an option too.
Right.
That, you know, that they can under the UCMJ they can't charge a commissioned officer. So a commissioned officer cannot necessarily get away with everything.
Right. No matter what they hear.
Yes.
Yeah, that's important to point out. You still have rights. Just because you sign the line and you are in the military doesn't mean you give up all of your rights to be a human being. You know, you still have the ability to take it higher if you have to. And if you're being abused by your leadership, then you have options. So when they retaliated against you for trying to take the paths that was proper, that just, one, it shows their guilt. You don't speed things up if you're not guilty at trying to hide something. You let things naturally progress, you collect the data, and then make an educated decision.
Well, the GI officer that I originally went to, he was also doing the case on that female that was sexually assaulted that I told you about. He actually requested from the base commander to give him a few more months to investigate it. But then when I put allegations against the base commander, he could no longer do it, and they pushed it even further and gave it to a different IG rights officer that I had never met. And when they told me I could have an ADC counselor, which is an Airman Defense Counsel, the lawyer that they gave me, the Air Force lawyer that I was allowed to advise to be seen, she wasn't even at the base. So I had no way of like communicating with her. I had to communicate with her paralegal instead, who's an enlisted, that has, you know, no, I'm not saying they're uneducated with what they do, but how can he fight on my behalf when it's the Air Defense Counsel's job to protect the service member? She's actually getting ready to PCS out of that base, to move away from that base. So I didn't even have the proper
legal support.
Yes.
Yep. Yeah, that's ridiculous. Well, that pretty much, you know, as soon as they can wash their hands of it, that looks better for them for promotion, because then they haven't been charged with anything or been guilty of anything under their watch. watch.
Correct. And that base commander that I was actually just telling you about, she actually is, this is the funny thing. So all enlisted members that are medical have to go through it's a joint base in Texas, Fort Sam Houston. And when I tried to tell you I got in trouble for speaking out for those retaliations on medical reasons to protect other people, she's actually now a base commander of training all those medical people.
Oh, that's great.
At Fort Sam Houston. Yep. She's in charge of the entire base, I believe, or just maybe it's that Air Force section, but she is in charge of all medical now and for the training.
Sickening.
Yeah, and an article just recently came out about her of how great she is and how great of a commander she is, and the actual truth isn't being said.
Well, I'm really hoping that everything comes out in the wash. Really hoping that your lawyers are actually able to do something that can put you back onto the same path that you wanted to be on. But
even if I'm not, I'm gonna keep speaking for service members. Maybe that's the path I'm meant to be on.
I kind of had to embrace that myself, wondering why I had to go through all this garbage with the VA and all of these bad things, and they put the screws to me pretty hard. And then I kind of realized that maybe because I started tracking everything, I started taking notes, figuring out their tactics, and then I've been using that information to help other veterans avoid it. And I started thinking maybe that's my purpose. Maybe that's what I was supposed to be doing, is looking out for those people that could possibly get hurt, that need to be helped. So that's why I'm kind of doing the same thing. It's trying to get organized, try to help as many veterans as humanly possible, try to right the wrongs, and it shouldn't have to be to force an organization to work ethically, but really lean in that direction, because everything points to immoral behavior and unethical decisions on behalf of the Veterans Affairs. When, if you're called the Department of Veterans Affairs, you would think that they're going to take care of the veterans and not have to fight. And unfortunately, within the next year and a half, I would have been fighting the VA just as long as I was in the military.
Wow.
Yeah, and I'm still fighting. Even though, I got 2 volumes of my medical record, the only things I've ever claimed was what's in my records from the 2 accidents that I had, that both of them should have killed me and didn't. But yet every step of the way, when they're putting the screws to me, has helped somebody else avoid it, because I'm tracking it. So not that I want to be the VA's punch dummy for the next 10 years, but if I am, as long as I just kind of keep the motivation going and keep getting the information put out and keep talking to veterans and trying to get their stories out there so other people know that they're not alone. So it's a good thing that you're talking to those that have been in the same circumstances, because they need somebody that can relate to their story, to know that no, it's not their fault, and there are things they can do, and there is life after trauma, and especially after the military.
It's even hard to conform when you're out of the service. I found it very difficult.
Yeah, it's tough. Well, the mentality doesn't exist out in the civilian sector,
No.
The discipline, no, that doesn't exist anymore. So it's a tough transition. And for some of us, I still do most things as if I was still in the military. I'm very punctual. I'm always early. I can't stand somebody being late. But, I make sure I try to do the right thing. I try to help people out when they need it. And I try to have the discipline needed to act professionally. It is lacking in the civilian sector, but, it's like oil and water nowadays. So that's, so are you going to try to move forward with your schooling to be a nurse?
I am. I'm actually in school currently for my nursing, and I currently work as an MA, which is a medical assistant with an organization, and we do preventative medicine and help, people find issues that might be wrong with them so that they can get the actual help that they need. That's all my life's I've ever been about. I used to be a volunteer firefighter prior to this too.
Awesome.
I just want to get back to my community and my service members. I'm not even just helping veterans, but I'm also helping active duty service members as well. From commission, it's funny, I have commission officers even asking me for help, even with them. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, that's good stuff. That is good stuff for sure. And keep on with that education too. It's definitely gonna help propel you where you want to be. And regardless how your case turns out, keep a hold of that positive attitude. And it's a harsh reality. We know that evil exists. It's another thing to have to confront that evil and know that it exists because you're looking at it, rather than just knowing that it exists. So, good for you for keeping that positive attitude and trying to do something good with everything. Definitely don't dwell on the past, but never forget it. I hear veterans all the time saying that they wish they could forget about their past, and I remind them that you don't ever want to forget. And the reason why you don't want to forget is because you don't want to have to repeat it. So you can forgive, just never forget. Never forget what happened and what the circumstances were and how the people that you trusted turned on you, because then you always have that shield that'll allow you to save yourself, basically. And it makes them realize that, as much as you want to put your trust in somebody, they need to earn that trust before you start giving it away. That's why I said with the VA, with representatives, they're not going to get my trust right up front. They've got to prove to me that they're worth trusting, and then I'll slowly let my guard down. But I'll never let it down fully, because when I do, that's when I miss something that's vital. It's okay to forgive. Just don't dwell on it. Just don't forget that it happened, and don't forget how certain people that should do the right thing and step up and own it that didn't. Like the commander that's leaving. All right, well, that was Senior Airman Dawson, and it's not easy for people to put themselves out there, because people are vulnerable and they set themselves up. And as that young lady was saying, she was trying to do the right thing and seek help to help herself mentally, because she was trying to process the deaths of many family members that she had, and that's a tough thing, especially when she was close with her family members, and she's trying to serve her country because she felt it was her calling, and gives up a free ride at a college in order to serve her country. And that's pretty admirable. Well, what are kids doing nowadays? They're throwing masks on, and they're going out and they're protesting about what? They don't know. They just want to be part of something, so they put a mask on so they can cause destruction and not be accountable for it. That's currently the society we're living in, and it's only getting more dangerous. So good for her. And all she was trying to do is find help, and she ends up getting shafted. So hopefully we'll do a follow-up with her. Once again, that was Senior Airman Dawson, and I say congratulations for being bold enough to step forward and actually speak about your experiences. And if we had more veterans and more service members do that, perhaps it would get into the minds of the other veterans that they need to step forward and talk of their experience, so that way other veterans can relate to it. Because right now there's a lot of scared veterans that don't want to open their mouth because they're worried about getting retaliated against. When you've been retaliated against for 13 years, you no longer fear the retaliation. You expect it. So my thing is, if you want to be, a tough guy and you want to retaliate against me, then let's do it face to face. But instead, they want to hide behind bureaucracy. That's what they want to do, because they're cowards. And I'm openly saying that they are cowards. And that's why I commonly say they can go screw themselves. So bravo to those that step forward, because it takes a lot of guts to do so. And for those that are thinking about stepping forward, think about this. So far, the people I've had on my podcast are brave women who have stepped forward to tell their story. I've yet to have any brave males step up and tell their stories. The venue's right here. I'm giving you the platform. I'm giving you the opportunity to talk about your experience, good or bad, and you can remain anonymous. But if you don't step forward, you're not helping anybody. But if you do step forward, you could help the veteran population better relate to their circumstance and have them step forward. So, I try to tell people, at the minimum, share things on social media to help other veterans, but you could do so much more. If you tell your experience with a VA at a certain location, you could help other veterans make better decisions about their situation. You could save that one veteran from committing suicide just with your story. So to me, it feels kind of selfish if you don't volunteer your information when you have the power to do so, because it could help other veterans. So that was an incredible story, and we'll possibly be able to do a follow-up with her down the road, catch up with her and see how things are going, as I like to try to do with everybody that does the podcast. So I will bid you all adieu.